In Hong Kong, it's been very peaceful, thank God. What is the end game if it stays peaceful, but if there's a third of the population in the streets doing it? It's not a third, but it's a big number. It's over 1 million, and it's not that, it's not that.
Yeah, it's 7.5 million people in Hong Kong. So,
1.7 million. And as we've said, these things have a way of not going away unless something's done or they get some type of concession or something bad happens. What's the end game?
Well, look, the end game is that the Chinese will uphold the commitment that they made, right? They made a promise, which was one country, two systems, that they would allow Hong Kong to continue to operate. We talk a lot about the protests. They're desiring us freedom and liberty, but we should remember, too, there's important businesses there, a lot of American interests. And the impact on Hong Kong, if this isn't resolved in a way that is peaceful and in accordance with those agreements, I think will be significant. And so we're hopeful that this will be resolved in, the President used the word humane way, a way that reflects the right of these people to protest. And we hope that the Chinese will honor their commitment to Hong Kong, one that they made a handful of years back.
How do you think President Xi uses that calculus in his negotiations on trade with President Trump?
As the president talked about this a little bit on Sunday, if it ends in a way that there was violence, the president said something like Tiananmen Square, that it would make it more difficult. I think that's true. I hope that's not a factor. I hope that the trade negotiations move forward, and I hope that Hong Kong is resolved in a peaceful way. Those would be the best outcomes for both China and the United States.
I just wonder if President Xi says, you know what? The last thing I need right now is this trade thing, when I've got really the possibility of some type of Arab Spring event in China. I don't know whether it gets to that, and we're talking about a lot more people, and it's not Hong Kong, it's mainland China. But that's what I think that's what we're all wondering.
Joe, remember, too, the trade deal is very important to President Xi as well. This is an economy that has grown at a rate of 6-7%, whatever number you believe. The impact of the reimposition of tariffs on China will have an enormous impact on the Chinese population.
It could be related. And if the economy slows, it's harder to keep everyone under the autocratic system, and the yearning for freedom becomes even more front and center if the economy slows.
As President Trump has said, we hope we can get to a good resolution of these trade agreements, and we can get the fair and reciprocal trade without tariff barriers, without them stealing our intellectual property, without the forced technology transfer, where American companies can invest on the same terms in China that Chinese companies can invest in America. Those are the simple things President Trump's asking for. I hope that President Xi will see his way clear to do that.
One of the main pieces of that puzzle, though, is HUAWEI, and there's been some mixed messages on HUAWEI recently.
No mixed messages.
The president has said he doesn't want to do
None at all.
The president has said he doesn't want to do business with HUAWEI at all if he can avoid it. And yet, Wilbur Ross has come out and said that there are these licenses which will be granted or should be granted. Meanwhile, you have the CEO of HUAWEI come out and say, look, if you tell Google that they can't provide Android to us, we're going to build our own. And that means that there's going to be a new operating system effectively in the wild. And perhaps the West isn't going to like that.
President Trump's been unambiguous. I don't think there's a mixed message at all. The threat of having Chinese telecom systems inside of American networks or inside of networks around the world presents an enormous risk, a national security risk. Our mission set is to find a way to reduce that risk, to take that risk down as much as we possibly can. I will concede the world was late to the game. We let HUAWEI and Chinese telecoms get a big jump start on us for a decade or a decade and a half. It's not political. It was across both political parties, and President Trump has now said that's a risk that we can't take to our American national security, to protect the American people's privacy. You don't want the Chinese Communist Party inside of your network, and so we're driving towards achieving that outcome.
But why did the Commerce Department just yesterday say that they're going to extend these waivers for the next 90 days?
No, there are elements. There are elements that don't have anything to do with national security. There are components that make sense, that don't pose that threat, and we're trying to find the right spot where the national security risks are addressed, but we compete fairly and allow our companies to trade.